All right, everybody, welcome back. Good morning. We've got more defensive linemen to take a look at today. We're going to get through these defensive ends. The rules from yesterday still apply, of course, so if you need a refresher, go watch the videos I posted yesterday. But we are going to be looking at the day 3 candidates now. We're going to be looking at players who are currently projected to be drafted on day 3, if at all. And by the end of this, we'll have a really good idea of what's going on at that position. All right, so we're going to kick things off with Mekhi Wingo. We ended our series yesterday with an LSU player. Now we're starting this series with another one, another LSU Tiger. 21 when the season starts, so nice and young. Definitely a positive. 6 feet flat, so he's short. 284, so he's definitely undersized. 32-inch arms, 9.25-inch hands. So he's definitely smaller than the typical player who plays on the interior of the defensive line, but it could work. And again, when it comes to a lot of these players, it's just hard to know exactly what Mike Macdonald is going to want because we have a relatively limited sample size of him getting what he wants, right? He was a DC at Baltimore for 2 years. Um, Tested really well, did Mekhi Wingo. I will say that. Had an awesome 40, an incredible 10-yard split on that 40. Jumps were good, 31.5-inch vert, 9-foot 1-inch broad. Bench press, not so great, but very athletic for a big man. And I know he's not that big. I know he's a little undersized, and that helps. But he did test extremely well. He's on a few of the big boards. They have him in the 3rd or 4th. The aggregate currently has him in the 4th, which is where I imagine he's going to go because he just didn't do that much in 2023. 25 tackles, 5 for loss, 4.5 sacks. It's not terrible, and he didn't play badly, but he missed some time, and he didn't have a big splash impact on that LSU defense. So I feel like that was the kind of make or break year for him, and it was kind of inconclusive. The previous year, he had a bigger impact. 46 tackles, 6 for loss, 3 sacks, 4 passes defensed, a forced fumble, and a better PFF grade. So Wingo, I still like him. I don't think we can judge him completely based off his reduced 2023 production, but there is definitely something to be said here about him not breaking out the way we're hoping. He's got great speed and agility to beat slow-footed blockers. He can get their edges. He can get around them really easily. He did do some edge rusher reps the same way that Draymond Jones does, so he showed an ability to be like an edge rusher. Powerful hitter, hits hard when he gets the opportunity to. He uses his hands really well to maneuver through traffic, and he gets out of his stance very quickly off the snap. The bigger offensive linemen out there are going to beat him up. He's just undersized, and it is what it is. His shorter arms are going to be a problem in the NFL, a bigger problem there than they were at the collegiate level, for sure. His stack and shed is okay, but he's never going to be a great stack and shedder because of his arm length. He tends to rely on beating players with his athleticism and speed than his ability to stack and shed. He missed some time last year, non-trivial amount of time. I can't remember if it was like 4 or 5 games. And I do wonder if he's just meant to be like an undersized 3 tech in a 4-3 defense, if that might be his best case scenario. So I think he's really fun. I like his tape a lot. He works really hard. He uses remarkable athletic ability to overcome being a little undersized. And my thing is, at the end of the day, Mike Macdonald's defense is typically like the bigger defensive ends based on what we saw in Baltimore. So in a vacuum, I think he's worth a 3rd rounder. But in the reality of being a Seahawks fan, I don't know if he is a 3rd rounder for this team. It's up to Macdonald, but this is not the kind of defensive end that he usually uses based on what we've seen. DeWayne Carter of Duke, next up here. He's a guy I've talked about a little bit this year. 23 years old when the season starts, 6'2", 302 pounds, a little bit bigger, 33-inch arms, 10.25-inch hands, so much better measurables. His combine was good. Sub 540, 172 10-yard split is good. Vert was good. Broad was pretty good. There should be a B right here. 3-cone was really rough, and his 20-yard shuttle was bad too. Those were the 2 areas where he fell short. So the change of direction and like lateral agility, that kind of stuff, not so great. But the explosiveness is good. The speed is good. The acceleration is good. Big board, some have him in the 3rd, but the aggregate has him in the 4th, barely, barely. So this is a guy who could go either way to me. The major big boards do think he's a 3rd rounder by and large, though. except for PFF. So that one could definitely go the other way, and he could be a top 100 pick, but I think it's going to be close. Stats the last 2 years have been good, although he was far more of a playmaker 2 years ago than he was last year. By the way, that's a trend with a lot of these defensive linemen. They had far worse production in 2023 than 2022. Like, this guy had double-digit tackles for loss in 2022. In 2023, he had 3.5. Um, Batted down some balls, forced a bunch of fumbles in 2022. PFF grades were good, although they were much better in 2022. So he's another guy who seems like maybe he regressed a little bit, despite not really losing that much playing time. I don't think he played less. So I don't really get it. But what can we say about DeWayne Carter? He's been a team captain for the last 3 years for the Blue Devils. He has a very powerful bull rush. His bull rush is something that can knock back offensive linemen and actually penetrate the pocket. His stack and shed game is nice. He uses his arms very well to keep the blocker off his body and then move off the blocker when the time to go comes. He uses leverage well, even though he's 6'2". He uses leverage like a guy who's maybe 6 feet flat, which you'll love to see that. That's not something you're going to have to teach him. He's got some pass rush moves, not a ton. He's got a little bit in his bag as a pass rusher. So, well-rounded player. And he's always giving maximum effort out there. You're not going to have to worry about DeWayne Carter not trying hard at any point. Now, his change of direction skills are what they are, not very good. So I think misdirection is going to eat him up a little bit. Having to move a lot up and down the field is going to get to him. That's probably not going to be great. He doesn't have a lot of pass rush moves. He has a good amount for a 300-pounder, but he is going to have to add more if he wants that to be a legitimate part of his game. And 2023, like I said, the production was disappointing. I don't think he played badly, but he didn't have the breakout year that I was anticipating. He doesn't get off the snap very quickly. He's not explosive at the snap. He's kind of the last guy out of his stance a lot. And he might be best off in a 4-3, which I'm going to keep saying that. I'm going to be a broken record with these defensive ends. A lot of them just feel like 3-techs in a 4-3, which not so great for our situation in all likelihood. And he misses a lot of tackles. I think he has double-digit tackle misses over the last 2 years. Each of the last 2 years, actually. So, I like him. I like him quite a bit. He's definitely going to be good against the run. He should be good as a pass rusher eventually. And I think he's big enough to be a defensive end in McDonald's defense because this is the kind of player he's generally gravitated towards building around. So if that's McDonald's style, I think it can work. And I wouldn't mind him in the late third round. I'm hoping you can wait until the fourth, but you might not be able to. I think he's probably worth a late fourth rounder. I'm sorry, late third rounder, but it's tight, man. It's tight. I like him. Next up is another Clemson Tiger, Tyler Davis. We talked about his teammate earlier. Now we've got Tyler Davis, 23 years old when the season starts, 6'2", 301 pounds. So again, a little bit bigger, but very short arms, 31 3/8, 9¼ inch hands. His testing was mixed. 40 time was good. 10-yard split was good. Vert was below average. Broad was above average. His 20-yard shuttle was a joke. 5 seconds flat. Miserable. And his bench press reps were 29, which is a little above average. So very mixed. All over the place for Tyler Davis. But let's take a look at the big boards here. Mostly they have him in like the 5th round area of things. Walter Football has him in the 3rd. They really like him. I think Walter might be lagging a little bit behind here. I think they're overestimating him a little bit. The aggregate has him in the late 4th or early 5th, which seems realistic to me. Good production over the last 2 years, although, again, this is another player. He was a much bigger splash playmaker in 2022 than 2023. He had 9.5 tackles for loss and 5.5 sacks in 2022. 2023, he's barely making any plays in the backfield. His PFF grade is still good. I'm not saying he was bad, but this is like a recurring trend. These guys stop making plays in 2023. They just kind of go out there and grind. I don't know what it is. Weird coincidence. Tyler Davis actually did some nose tackle stuff at Clemson, and even though he's undersized, he might actually be able to do a little bit of it in the pros. He might at least give you a little bit at the nose tackle spot, a little bit of depth, which better than nothing, right? He's got strength. He's got some nice ability to push back on double teams, Like, he doesn't have the massive size that you typically look for a guy who can take on a double team, but he can do it. He's got lower body strength galore, which allows him to dominate the single blocks. Uses his lower body strength very well to dominate blockers. He's got powerful hands. He's got a nice, powerful punch that he uses to take control of the rep from the start. And he does move with good agility. He does look like a natural mover out there when he's on the field. He is somebody who can like twist and stunt and come along to the other side of the field from where he starts, and it all looks good. But I don't know how much of this is going to translate because he is a little bit smaller than you would typically expect a big space eater to be, and his arms are short. So some of this stuff is not going to carry over. He doesn't use leverage as well as you would like. He's 6'2", but he plays standing straight up. His pass rush set isn't where it needs to be yet for him to become a true every down player. And while his hands are powerful, they're not quick the way you would like. He's not really able to win those battles with his hands the way that some of these defensive linemen do. It's just powerful hands. So I don't mind this overall. I like the fact that he's able to handle double teams. I like his power. I like his strength. I, again, just have to wonder how much of it carries over. We've seen players who are undersized find a way to do it in the NFL. We've seen guys like Poona Ford be productive pros despite being smaller than you would expect a player like that to typically be. But will Tyler Davis be that guy? It's hard to know. So I like it, but it's definitely a risk. I would say take him in round 4. As soon as day 3 starts, it's open season. Go get him in day 3. Round 4, make it happen. I like him a little bit more than most of the big boards. All right, I'll see you guys later. Go Hawks. Let me know what you think of this crop.